This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Mosaic, a daily news program from Link TV, presents a selection of news reports from independent and state-controlled broadcasters from throughout the Middle East.
وسط حالة من الحزن والغضب شيعت جنازات الشهداء.
Amidst an atmosphere of sadness and anger, a funeral procession was held for the 20 martyrs who died in the Beit Hanun massacre committed by the occupation forces in the northern Gaza Strip yesterday. As fighters fired gunshots into the air, Palestinian factions, using bullhorns, vowed that they would use all means available to retaliate. The funeral procession began from the Kamal Adwan Hospital and the martyrs' homes to Martyrs Cemetery.
This afternoon, amid sadness and anger, thousands of Palestinians held a funeral procession for the dozens of martyrs who died in the town of Beit Hanun as a result of the Operation Autumn Clouds, the name given by the occupation army for the wide-scale operation in the town. The operation lasted 7 days, causing massive devastation to the town, killing dozens of people and injuring hundreds of others. During the operation, the town sustained more than $10 million worth of damages. Thousands of residents joined the angry march to participate in the funeral procession amid screams condemning the unjust Israeli massacre of the residents in the town. During the Israeli operation in Beit Hanun, more than 30 Palestinians were martyred. The Israeli army's siege on the town prevented its residents from holding funerals for them. This morning, the occupation forces redeployed to the outskirts of Beit Hanun after placing it under siege for 6 days, martyring more than 60 people and injuring nearly 300 others, 50 of whom were severely wounded. Then, armored tanks, bulldozers, and machines carried out partial withdrawals from the town. Residents went out to survey the devastation that the Israeli war machine left behind. The residents saw that the wide-scale Israeli attack destroyed dozens of homes, uprooted hundreds of dunams of agricultural lands, and destroyed sewage and water systems. They described the attack as a devastating earthquake that hit the town.
ووصفوه بالزلزال المدمر الذي ضرب البلدة.
هذا وقد قررت الجامعة العربية عقد اجتماع.
The Arab League has decided to hold an emergency meeting of Arab foreign ministers this Sunday. The UN Security Council is expected to hold a public session today to discuss the situation in Gaza. The United States has opposed holding the session. However, it changed its position after pressure from Arab and Islamic nations as well as the non-aligned countries. The UN Secretary General Kofi Annan expressed his deep shock and sadness over the killing of civilians in Beit Hanun, calling on Israel to immediately stop its military operations.
وقف عملياتها العسكرية فورا ودون أي إبطاء. معي من غزة خليل أبو شمالة.
Joining us from Gaza, Khalil Abu Shamala, the director of Damir Human Rights Organization. Mr. Abu Shamala, how do you view what is happening from a humanitarian perspective?
أولا أود أن أشير إلى أن هذه المجزرة ليست الأولى التي تقوم بارتكابها قوات الاحتلال الإسرائيلي بحق المدنيين الفلسطينيين سواء في قطاع غزة أو الضفة الغربية.
I would like to point out that this is not the first massacre that was carried out by the Israeli occupation forces against Palestinian civilians in Gaza and the West Bank. The humanitarian conditions of the Palestinians go beyond that. They are being subjected to an economic and political siege that has paralyzed all aspects of the Palestinian life. The international community continues to be silent and does not do anything. We hear statements that cannot be considered condemnations to the occupation, despite the fact that the whole world can see what has been happening in the West Bank and Gaza. We feel that a double standard policy is being applied to Arabs. These policies are intended to serve the interests of the Israeli occupation.
بمكيالين في التعامل مع القضايا العربية وبما يحقق مصلحة حكومة الاحتلال الإسرائيلي. ما حدث نعم
نعم، أنتم يعني كمدير مؤسسة ضمير لحقوق الإنسان كيف هو دوركم؟
As the director of the Damir Human Rights Organization, what have you been doing in regards to the 9-month economic and political siege? Last week alone, more than 70 people were martyred, an average of 10 martyrs per day. What is your role? What have you been doing?
يوميا، ما هو دوركم؟ ماذا تقومون؟
منظمات حقوق الإنسان وكما تعلمون أنها ليست المقررة وليست هي اللاعب الرئيسي في الميدان. منظمات حقوق الإنسان رسالتها
As you know, human rights organizations are not policymakers, nor are they major players on the ground. Our mission as a human rights organization is to document Israeli crimes and human rights violations and work with international human rights organizations and different bodies within the United Nations to educate the international community about what is happening to the Palestinian people. Of course, yesterday, 12 Palestinian human rights organizations in the West Bank and Gaza demanded that the United Nations hold a special session to discuss the massacre and the continued violations by the Israeli occupation forces. We also have requested an international investigation committee because we do not have confidence in the investigation that the occupation government or army plans to do. We do not have trust in any investigation that will be conducted by the occupation because they are being accused of the crimes.
نتائج أو أي لجان تحقيق تنبع من دولة الاحتلال على اعتبارها أنها
Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Olmert attributed the death of 18 Palestinians in an attack on Beit Hanun in the northern Gaza Strip to a technical failure in the tank that carried out the attack. Tens of thousands of Palestinians held funeral processions for the victims of the massacre who were buried in a mass grave. Members of different Palestinian factions joined the processions and fired gunshots in the air. More details with Hanan al-Masri.
With kisses and farewells mixed with tears, the family of Athamna and the people of Beit Hanun said their goodbyes to the victims of the massacre. Anger dominated the scene and gunshots were fired like loud cries into the sky. From this house alone, the bodies of 16 martyrs were recovered. The youngest was of the young girl, Rima. She was carried by the hands of the resistance fighters, whom the people asked to avenge the martyrs' deaths.
I just can't believe it. I swear what happened should be written in history. My dear, no one can do anything. It's as if we're living a dream and we were woken up by an earthquake.
Sorrow was on people's faces and in their hearts as people remembered their neighbors and friends who died in an instant.
They are prepared to do anything for a settler without an identity or history, just so he can live happily. History, civilization, and trees thousands of years old are being erased and uprooted. People are dying and neighbors' houses are being destroyed completely because of two settlers who came from different countries.
Nirmeen Qasim's mother and brother sustained serious injuries. She and her brothers could not sleep the night in their house because it was destroyed. She is now trying to recover from wounds, which she says will be added to her memory.
My brother was waiting to have a son for years. After God fulfilled his dream, he fell into a coma at Tel Aviv Hospital. His wife is recovering from a gunshot wound at Gaza Hospital. Only God knows whether he will see his son or not.
A state of sadness and anger has overtaken the town. It looks like it will stay with the people for a long time after this injustice happened and continues to happen.
In a press conference in Damascus, the head of the Hamas political office, MartyrsAl, held Israel and those who provide it with weapons responsible for crimes committed against the Palestinian people.
This morning we witnessed the massacre of Beit Hanun and Al Yamun, which happened in western Jenin. Children, women, and the elderly are falling in their homes, not by random shelling, but by deliberate shelling.
Mish'al added that these new Israeli crimes came in the framework of a continued Israeli aggression against the Palestinian people, which Olmert has expanded last week in an attempt to increase his popularity. Olmert wanted to revive the confidence of the Israeli public in the government, which was shattered when the occupation forces were forced to stop their aggression on Lebanon. Mish'al condemned the Israeli crimes and said that the response will be more than mere words. It will be in the form of resistance, which is a natural response to the Israeli crimes.
I represent a political position, and the heroes of the resistance in Palestine, our people and Mujahideen, will respond. We hold the Zionist entity and the American administration responsible for this ugly massacre. A few days ago, the American administration said that what Israel was doing in Beit Hanun, Beit Lahia, and Jabaliyah was legitimate self-defense.
Mish'al explained that more than 90 people were martyred and hundreds of others were injured by the recent Israeli aggressions, which took place under blatant American cover and international acquiescence and regrettable Arab incompetence. He called on Muslims and Arabs to act in a way that matches the Israeli defiance in order to end the unjust Israeli siege against the Palestinian people.
I call on the leaders of the Islamic nation to break the Israeli siege. I call on them to take a courageous initiative immediately to honor the blood of the children who died in Beit Hanun and the heroes of Al-Yaman. They must break the siege and reject the American pressure to keep it in place. Yes, I'm calling on Muslim and Arab leaders to take a courageous initiative to break the Zionist and Israeli siege against our people.
The saga of the Gay Pride Parade continues with a new twist brought on by the high security alert following the Beit Hanun tragedy. Just minutes ago, Haredi leaders agreed to a compromise decision that was reached this afternoon between organizers of the parade and police that the parade will take place in the Hebrew University Stadium. Ahead of the ultra-Orthodox decision, IBA's Eli Wogelanter filed this report.
Parade organizers met with police and offered a compromise whereby instead of a parade, a closed gathering would take place at the Hebrew University Stadium. Police were concerned over increased protests among Israeli Arabs, as well as possible terror attacks following yesterday's artillery strike in Gaza, in which 20 Palestinian civilians were accidentally killed by artillery fire. In the hours following the strike, Inspector General Moshe Karadi instructed the police to raise the level of national alert to level 3, the second highest level. Karadi's office said that he also is considering raising the alert level tomorrow on the Temple Mount during Friday prayers. The Badat's Religious Authority met this afternoon to discuss whether to accept the proposal offered by leaders of the gay and lesbian community to cancel the march in the city's streets and instead hold the parade at the Hebrew University Stadium. Meanwhile, to protest the gay march, religious opponents of the parade this afternoon held what they called a march of beasts, leading goats and donkeys along the route the parade was to take place. That too was protested. The High Court of Justice late this morning turned down a petition filed by the Let Animals Live organization asking the court to ban the so-called March of Beasts as it violates animals' rights. It is unnecessary to say how important the right to protest is to a democratic country, the judges wrote in their verdict. Meanwhile, the High Court was set to respond later today to 4 separate petitions against the gay march. Supreme Court President Dorit Banish appealed yesterday to the leaders of the ultra-Orthodox opponents of the gay parade to preach against violence if the court decides to reject the petitions calling on the police to prohibit the parade. And for the second night in a row, protesters in the ultra-Orthodox town of Kiryat Sefer near Modi'in burned tires and trash cans in protest, but unlike the night before, did not spill flammable liquids on the roadway. Eli Wogelanter, IBA News.
Joining me now in the studio to discuss the decision regarding the gay parade and the security situation is police spokesman Mickey Rosenfeld. Mickey, thanks for coming in this evening. At this moment, what is the status of the nationwide security alert?
Yesterday morning, after the unfortunate incident that took place in the Gaza Strip, a decision was made to raise the level of alert all over the country in all 6 districts to 1 level above the regular level. This is in fact 1 level higher than the top level. This is a procedure which is necessary to be taken after a large number of general alerts that were received, and therefore it's necessary for us to take this precaution.
Concrete alerts, specific areas to avoid?
general alerts that we've received, not in any specific cities, but our police personnel are out there on the streets in order to maintain a high level of security.
What is the police doing vis-a-vis security arrangements for tomorrow's gay event in the stadium, now that the ultra-Orthodox have said they will not protest?
A decision has been made within the last few minutes that there will in fact be a closed gathering that will take place in the stadium in Jerusalem. This is an official decision that was made by the police commissioner. For us as a police force, if there'll be 3,000 police officers scheduled to be at the scene itself, it'll be easy for us to deal with the situation at the stadium, and it will be necessary to bring in the original number, which was in fact up to 12,000 police officers and police personnel, to deal with the overall complex situation that was scheduled to be.
So you are basically ready for anything to happen?
Well, we're prepared obviously to take all security measures at the stadium, at the site, but at the same time maintain public order both within the different neighborhoods inside Jerusalem, meaning the ultra-religious neighborhoods, as well as the roads and the entrances of Jerusalem that could possibly be blocked by the large number of people from all around the country that are scheduled to arrive in Jerusalem and protest.
Mickey, do you think the police took a hard enough stance against the Haredi, against the ultra-Orthodox rioters and their behavior in the last week, 2 weeks prior to the planned parade?
Well, in a democratic society, it's necessary for us to take all precautions. Obviously, the right of freedom of speech is something that is one of the most important aspects. But at the same time, if there are mass riots like there were, and disturbances where so many people have been involved, meaning over 180 ultra-religious people that have taken part have been arrested, 45 policemen being injured, over 40 vehicles being damaged. Therefore, this is a situation that obviously we can't deal with in terms of letting this happen, and therefore it's necessary for us to take all measures in order to maintain the public order.
Mickey Rosenfeld, Police Department spokesman, thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you very much.
In Iraq this morning, at least 7 people were killed and dozens of others were injured in separate incidents of violence in Baghdad and further south. An Iraqi police source said that 3 people were killed and 5 others were injured by a mortar shell that landed near the Ministry of Health in Bab al-Mu'azzam area in northern Baghdad. In Iskandariya, south of Baghdad, 2 people were killed by an explosion device that went off inside a home in the village.
Acts of violence continue to kill dozens of people in Iraq. In the center of the city of Fallujah, an explosive device detonated, killing and injuring many people. An Iraqi security source said that an explosive device that was planted near a girls' primary school went off after students near the school discovered it. He added that some students tried to protect other students from the device by keeping them away from it. However, it exploded, killing 2 of the students and injuring 5 others. In the area of Krayat, north of the capital, Baghdad, 17 people were killed and dozens of others were injured, some of them severely, by a suicide bomber who detonated his explosive belt inside a popular coffee shop. The victims were taken to nearby hospitals after the Iraqi forces cordoned off the area. In the past 24 hours, Iraqi police forces in Baghdad and nearby suburbs found 18 dead bodies. The police said that 10 of the unidentified bodies found in Baghdad showed signs of torture. He added that all of the bodies had gunshot wounds to their heads. The police indicated that security forces in the province of Wasuk retrieved 3 male dead bodies from the Dijla River north of the town of Sawaira. In Ramadi, clashes broke out between armed men and U.S. forces near one of the American bases after it was attacked by mortar shells. A number of suspects were also arrested in Ramadi and nearby areas.
المشتبه بهم في الرمادي والمناطق المحيطة بها.
A suicide bomber blew himself up today in an army training camp in the city of Darjeh, near the area of Malkland, in Pakistan's northwest region of Sarhad, killing 42 soldiers and injuring dozens of others. According to government-run television stations, the Pakistani army imposed a curfew in the city. This news came a few days after the death of more than 80 people in an airstrike that targeted a religious school in the city of Bajur along the Afghan border.
الهجوم الانتحاري ضد مركز لتدريب الجيش الباكستاني في منطقة درجي التابعة لإقليم سرحد المحافظة.
In an unprecedented armed attack against the Pakistani army, a suicide bomber blew himself up in a training camp in the city of Darjeh in the region of Sarhad along the Afghan borders, killing more than 42 soldiers and injuring dozens of others. It appears that today's attack was in retaliation to the deadly army airstrike on a religious school in the tribal area of Bajur, where more than 85 students, mostly children, were killed. Meanwhile, the Pakistani Interior Minister Aftab Khan Sherpao condemned today's suicide attack, not dismissing reports that it was carried out in retaliation to the deadly army attack on the madrasa in Bajur. Pakistani opposition leaders accused President Pervez Musharraf of dragging the army into a showdown with armed groups in the country. In addition, they held the army responsible for last week's attack on the school in Bajur and the confrontations in the region of Baluchistan.
مستشهدة بعملية القصف على المدرسة والمواجهات في إقليم بلوشستان.
We will consult with other opposition leaders to organize an anti-Musharraf campaign. We hold Musharraf responsible for the school bombardment in Bajur and the death of Pakistani soldiers in Darjeh. The army attack on the school has created animosity between the army and the people.
The suicide bomb attack on the army training camp in Darjeh came one day after Richard Boucher, the U.S. Assistant Secretary of State, had visited the country. Boucher said that his country supports Pakistan, especially in the so-called war on terror. Some observe that Islamabad's alliance with Washington in the so-called war on terror has led to an escalation in the level of violence and security deterioration in the country.
The alliance between the United States and Pakistan in the so-called war on terror and the ongoing United States military operations in the tribal areas along the Afghan borders have led to an escalation in the level of violence, as it was demonstrated in today's attack.
The escalation in the level of violence against the Pakistani army indicates a deep division between the government and local tribes. It is highly expected that the level of violence will continue to escalate if the crisis is not resolved peacefully.
Leader of the Islamic Revolution, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, says remaining loyal to the revered ideals of those who fell martyr for the cause of the revolution guarantees national might, dignity, and progress. On the second day of a visit to the northeastern province of Semnan, Ayatollah Khamenei told a host of martyrs' families, war veterans, and besieged volunteer forces that the Iranian nation will always remain grateful to the sacrifices made by the martyrs and their respected families. The leader added, the Iranian national honor, independence, and progress are all indebted to those who bravely sacrificed their lives in defending their homeland and revolutionary values. Ayatollah Khamenei noted that today the faithful young Iranian generation, like their peers in the first post-revolution years, are ready to go all out to safeguard lofty Islamic and national ideals of the founder of the Islamic Republic, the late Imam Khomeini. Chinese ambassador to the United Nations Wang Guanghia says talks among the permanent members of the Security Council over Iran have not reached a tangible result, and a deep rift still divides them on a proposed draft resolution against Iran. U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations John Bolton has admitted the existing diversion of viewpoints on Iran, but failed to make any comment on the areas of difference and the time of the next meeting at the P5+1 group. This comes as Moscow steps up efforts for resumption of negotiations on Iran's case. Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said on Thursday no change has been made in Russia's standpoint on Iran's atomic work, and that Moscow urges the need for NPT signatories to abide by the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty.
مشاهدينا أينما كنتم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
We will begin the economic news in Abu Dhabi, where the Conference for Arab Businesswomen from the Middle East and North Africa is in its second day. The businesswomen praised the steps towards reform in the region, which has made women's presence more notable and has strengthened their roles. The summit also provides an opportunity to demonstrate Arab women's economic achievements.
More than 250 prominent businesswomen with various expert backgrounds are attending the Conference for Arab Businesswomen from the Middle East and North Africa in Abu Dhabi, thus proving that if Arab women are giving opportunities, they will be able to confirm their presence and their positive contributions to the fields of construction and development.
أعتقد أن الإصلاح السياسي، الإصلاح الاجتماعي.
I think in the recent political and social reforms we have been witnessing in the Gulf region are very focused on the role of women and their position in society.
على دور المرأة، مركز كثير على وضعية المرأة وعلى أساس أنها تكون فعلا شريك.
This is so that they can be active partners in the social, national, or economic development of a country.
أول سواء في التنمية الاجتماعية، في التنمية الوطنية، في التنمية الاقتصادية للوطن.
The objective of this summit is to provide businesswomen the skills needed to establish successful commercial ventures, to strengthen their relationships in the business field, and to benefit from other people's successful experiences.
The most important thing about these conferences is the networking and coordination among Arab businesswomen. Foreign societies, especially American society, do not know very much about the capabilities and skills of Arab women. Arab women have been participating in political and economic life for a very long time. Actually, they're astonished that we have entered politics, manufacturing, trade, and investment. What's more, we've entered fields which even they have not entered.
At the local level, with the support of the leadership of the Emirates, Emirati women have made many economic achievements that should not be underestimated. They control more than 12 billion dirhams in investments.
Sheikh Khalifa, God grant him a long life, has continued the policies of his late father, Sheikh Ziyad, God have mercy on him. So we have had many accomplishments. During Ziyad's period in office, we had one female minister. Now during Khalifa's reign, we have 2 female ministers. God willing, we expect further progress for women in the course of the great leadership.
The Council of Businesswomen in Dubai, a 4-year-old organization, is another achievement for Emirati women. Among the Council's members are hundreds of female citizens who possess an entrepreneurial spirit and who have become involved in special projects. Women in the Emirates have been successful on the ground as well, making up 66% of the public workforce.
The views expressed on Mosaic are those of the participating broadcasters, not Link TV or its sponsors. Please visit linktv.org/Mosaic for more information about these broadcasters or to view previous Mosaic programs, obtain program transcripts, or receive the weekly Mosaic Intelligence Report. Mosaic is made possible by a grant from the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation. Additional support is provided by the Feyerdahl Foundation, the Otto Haas Charitable Trust, and by committed Link TV viewers like you. If you value this program, please send your tax-deductible contribution to Link TV, either through the website or the mailing address listed on your screen. This program was brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Link TV is the only U.S. television network devoted to global and national news, with uncompromising documentaries and diverse cultural programs. Programs which connect you to the world.